Hi everyone, Sarah Pacaro here with Rewrite Your Life, Rapid Transformational Therapist, helping you heal after having been in a toxic and unhealthy relationship. So what is it that gets us in these toxic and unhealthy relationships in the first place? Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, to answer that question, why, you've got to go back and figure it out for yourself, because in your past you've had experiences that led you to having certain beliefs about yourself, which take you to these types of relationships in the first place. But there's another thing involved, and that's just your natural personality. So your natural personality type, there's lots of different personality tests out there. One that I recently took, and I was not surprised at all, it's already something I know about myself, but maybe something that you're interested in learning about yourself, is called an enneagram. So an enneagram type is a personality type. You can find yourself in a little bit of all the categories, which is typical, but there's generally a very dominant personality type. So there's 9 different enneagram types, and what those are the reformer, the helper, the achiever, the individualist, the investigator, the loyalist, the enthusiast, the challenger, and the peacemaker. So if you found yourself in a toxic and unhealthy relationship, chances are you have that few of these that we're going to talk about today. So a narcissist obviously is a challenger. They're just challenging by nature, and they attract and connect themselves to people with more of these most dominant personality types, and these are the helper and the peacemaker. So you may find yourself in one of these 2 categories. So the theory behind these enneagrams is that the personality type is fixed and does not change over time. Well, I mean, you can have your own thoughts about that. I do see myself in different ones, but more generally the helper, which is why I was a teacher and now a therapist, and the peacemaker. I just love when everyone's happy. So that's my ultimate goal now with doing what I do. So we're going to talk about the helper. Helpers are very kind-hearted, very empathetic, and they value close relationships. So subsequently, they're very generous and open and giving, and tend to be people pleasers by nature. Perfect combination for a narcissist, because they love giving, and above all, they want to be loved at the same time, and their greatest fear is to not be worthy of love. So that's why if you find yourself in a relationship with a narcissist and you're the helper, you don't want to give up on this relationship, because ultimately really what you want is to be loved, and you want to please them. So you do all these things that they want you to do, and oh my gosh, you can't ever do enough for a narcissist, because they have such a deep wounded sense of themselves, and they're constantly looking for supply. And if you're a helper, you're constantly wanting to give them what it is that they're seeking or looking for. So helpers naturally go out of their way to serve others, and when I work with people, they get to this dynamic where, oh my gosh, they just can't give enough, and now there's nothing left of them. They just feel like they're a shell of themselves. So they're very compassionate, very considerate of others, and they just exude warmth and friendship and love and all the ooey gooey sunshiny stuff, and they listen attentively without a second thought. And the problem is, when you listen like that and you give like that, you fail to give that very thing to yourself, because you're told you're selfish, and helpers obviously don't want to be selfish. They want to give to others. So there's kind of this weird dynamic there. They're not giving themselves what they're giving to others, and then they just feel like over time you're just completely defeated, like you don't even know who you are anymore, because they don't have a strong of identity, a sense of identity, because they also depend on that validation from others. I helped you. Okay, thank you so much for helping me. And that's the validation that they need, that comes from outside of themselves. Well, first of all, narcissists are never going to say thank you for helping me, because that's just not who they are. And so you feel this void that you wanted to get that validation from others, because you have given them so much, and if you don't get it, obviously confidence, self-esteem, and self-worth plummets. It totally goes down. But they give and give and give, and they really feel that others' needs are more significant than their own. Okay, insert the trap. Helper, narcissist, challenger. They're constantly giving, and they got you trapped, this push-pull dynamic. How do I get out of this? Well, narcissists obviously flock to people who are helpers, because they thrive on this constant attention and validation, and they depend on others to give to them what they don't have themselves. So moreover, they crave this comfort, and they'll latch onto whatever feels familiar so they can unleash their abuse on someone without them noticing it too quickly. They'll just say, oh, they've had a bad day, or like whatever reason or excuse that the narcissist gives, because they're always in that victim role and mentality. And this is a problem because helpers tend to be extremely empathetic by nature. They want to see the good in everybody. And as a result, if they're with a narcissist, they may disarm or deny the abuse that they're receiving from this narcissist. They might try to rationalize the behavior because, well, the narcissist had a really rough childhood and upbringing. And you feel so bad for them. And you, as the helper, might even assume that it's all your fault. And you know what? If I could just make this narcissist happier, they'd stop treating me like this. And the narcissist will change. Well, never gonna happen. Helpers find themselves stuck in this vicious cycle in this excess of giving and giving and giving, because if I just help more and love more, they'll stop this nasty behavior. And you will just give and give and give, like I said, until you feel depleted and there's nothing left of you. Over time, this chips away at your own personal identity and makes you feel like, I don't even know who I am anymore, because at this point, years and years have passed, and you wake up and realize this. So let's go into the next enneagram type that's most likely attracted to narcissists. This is the peacemaker. So very much like the helper. They are people who aim to keep others happy, and they do their best to avoid conflict because you're constantly seeking peace. So these peacemakers value stability with themselves and with others, and they deeply experience a fear of loss and separation. So again, you may be asking, why can I not leave this narcissist? I know like all the red flags are there and they're constantly making me feel like this, but you're constantly trying to find how to make and keep the peace. So peacemakers tend to be creative and very supportive. So they're thinking of ways outside the box. I haven't done this yet, or if only I change or do this about myself. And then they're very supportive. So if the narcissist says, oh, let's go to therapy, or I'm going to go to therapy, or you're right, I need to stop drinking, or I need to stop doing this, you're thinking, oh, yeah, that's a great solution, because peacemakers are often very adaptive, and they're known as people who go with the flow. That's where I found myself. So you just think, okay, well, maybe this is it. There are people who like to stay very grounded, and they keep things in perspective, but they don't let too much faze them. And they don't really let others get under their skin because they can be very calm, especially in tumultuous situations. So when the narcissist is raging, you're like, hey, it's okay. It's all right. But it gets a little difficult. Here's the trap for the peacemakers. Narcissists are drawn to peacemakers for several reasons. First of all, we've talked about this a lot. They depend on other people to cater to their needs without making a fuss, and a peacemaker will not make a fuss. They're often willing to take the brunt and do that, because it's easier to just change things and keep the peace rather than make waves. But this leads to that feeling that you're constantly walking around on eggshells with them. Peacemakers don't want to look at the problem. They want to pretend like, oh, no, because that's just not their nature. They don't want to look at the problems that exist in the relationship, because they know what it's like to feel unloved or neglected, and they don't want to inflict those feelings of not feeling loved or neglected onto the narcissist, because they're very aware of maybe the narcissist past, and they're very in tune with those painful feelings that the narcissist keeps for themselves. And even if they suffer, these peacemakers, the problem is they often suffer in silence, so they just keep taking it, keep making the peace, because it feels scary to express out loud what you're feeling, or to feel like you're going to offend somebody, because you don't want to say anything that's going to hurt somebody. So they do tend to experience these intense emotions, but they keep them within. And that's difficult, because if you keep that within, it's going to only impact you. So these deep hurtful feelings they keep inside, and they almost pretend that they don't exist. So this leads to them feeling deep feelings of resentment, low self-esteem, low self-worth, and one of the worst ones is a really deep, great sense of shame. So know that the narcissist is the challenger, and if you find, I mean, I encourage you, there's different enneagram quizzes online that you can go take, but those are the two most common personality types, the helper and the peacemaker, and then the narcissist, the challenger. So after you've been in a toxic and unhealthy relationship, there's no bad personality type, even a challenger. Like, you can challenge yourself to change. So even if you're a challenger, it's not a bad thing. Or if you're a helper or peacemaker, not a bad thing, only if you lose yourself, your sense of self-worth, because you put everyone else above you, including the narcissist. So no bad personality types, but just know yours and how it plays this role in your life with you attracting toxic and unhealthy people, particularly narcissists. If you find that you have left one and then boom, the next relationship is with another one. You've got to do the inner work to heal and get to the root cause of those beliefs. So like I said, I encourage you, if you're interested, go find out your enneagram type. There's lots of quizzes and tests online that you can find out, and then really do the inner work to heal from that, and know that, okay, I am a helper, I'm a peacemaker, and that's okay. It's a good thing. I'm going to take all these good qualities and help make my life even greater and better, but in healthy ways. So thank you guys for tuning in. I found this quite interesting. I mean, not a surprise, but it was kind of like, duh. And I think the more that you can learn about yourself and heal from within, the better all of your relationships are going to be, particularly after having been in a toxic and unhealthy relationship, where you really want to get to the root cause of it and discover, what is it about me, and find an answer to that question of why. Why do I find myself in situations and relationships like this? And if that's where you're at, as always, please click on my banner and we can schedule a strategy call and talk about healing from within using rapid transformational therapy to help get you there and move you forward to a really happy, blissful life where you can be the peacemaker and the helper, but not allow challenging narcissists into your life. So thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. I encourage you, Google Enneagram personality type and find out what yours is.